I would like to welcome all of you here to our Dowling House, owned by Carla and Ward Heaton, who have been in ownership since 1999. 1999, so it's has undergone a lot of changes and updates, I suspect. 5 years from now, we'll all meet back here and go through the house. And at this point, then, I'm going to introduce the owners of this home since 1999. She grew up, though, 63 years ago or more. And this is Carla Heaton and her husband Ward, and I'm going to turn it over to them at this point.
Carla wrote this, but she just asked me to share. So we've been here, as I moved in 1999, purchased it from Carla's folks. So that's why Carla will share memories, because she grew up here. And we aren't related to the Dowlings. It wasn't a family home from that far back, but always thought, well, it should be kept in the family. So, when mom and dad were going to ready to leave, well, someone should buy it. And for years but the timing finally, when it came around time, it worked out. So we did. And I was familiar with the house, and I love the house. So, but when you're dealing with things on a home this old, it's, lumber was different dimensions back then. It's really difficult. You can't just go out and buy the stock things. And when you're looking for someone to help you with the repairs, you've got to find someone who's interested in retaining the historical look and all that. You don't just tear everything out and slap up drywall, and at least that's how we feel. So you talk to people, and a lot of times they just don't call you back. But we had to get a carpenter.
The extensive preparation.
Yeah, the extensive preparation wasn't a lot. Learn as you go. It's advice. Do more research than we did. We did some, but finding someone like those windowsills on those windows had been rotted for years, and we, talked to her brothers about replacing. Well, we could try this, or we could do that, and we finally did it done. The flooring, some of the boards on the porch actually had little weeds growing up through where a few had rotted. And there's pictures on the handout when we got into that. Mitch is here, who did the work, and he could tell you a lot. Like most things, you uncover damage you didn't know was there, and you get into a lot more than you planned. So, and parts of the siding that we had to have that we knew were bad. We had it painted 22 years ago, and there were things we knew we should have had repaired then, but we didn't. So this time around, we did a better job. And even back then, 22 years ago, we had, I think it was RJ Woodworking that did some of the molding, the cove molding and such, that we had to, see, can you make this? And they said, yeah, but we have to order special knives for our machine to cut it. So there's an expense to all that. And a few years after we bought it, we had it re-roofed. In the first year or second year after that, on the other side, there were icicles hanging through the soffit because we got a lot of snow in that December, and it backed up, and the rain and ice shield only went up 3 feet, but the eaves are almost 3 feet. So we had that problem, and they came and shoveled the snow off, and we never saw it happen again until last winter after we had it painted, a spot back there. But there were icicles, brown icicles hanging on the siding because it backed up and then came down and down the wall. So something else, there's always something. Choosing paint colors, that was Carla's thing. I'm actually partially colorblind, so I see color, but colorblind people see it differently than people who aren't colorblind. It looks different, but it doesn't look the same. So basically, she found a book that
Painted Ladies.
Yes, Painted Ladies, and found one kind of how we, here's how we want it to be, and then got a stack of paint, the paint sample chips, a stack that thick that had 7 or 8 colors in each card palette and, chose from it. And actually, the yellow is one I chose out of that. So the yellow and the pink, if you have to look and see if you can find the pink, were the only two colors that I really chose and sort of stuck. We need to have that. And once you decide the colors, then you got to decide, well, which color goes where and what's the pattern going to be. And it was trial and error. And Carla finally had a good idea, and he'd do it, and no, we don't like that. So she finally got a piece of wood and painted the color she wants. There's the color I want, and things went a little better. Like I said, we did this twice. The first time I was still working, and I didn't realize how bad it was. Carla complained about it because, of course, you do it in the summer. And they don't do all brushwork. They spray it. And 22 years ago, they stripped it down. It was almost bare wood. And then they spray primer. So they tape all the windows. And every time they put another coat on, the plastic, it's somewhat clear plastic, but your porthole gets a little smaller and smaller because paint gets over that plastic. And so, those are big windows, but you end up with little circles like this that you can see out or let daylight in. So this time I was retired, I was around a lot more, and I fully understood what she went through twice now. That I got to leave and be gone all day, so I didn't go through that. And you can't, And so we're sealed in there, and we don't have central air because we have steam radiator heat, and you can't run air conditioning through steam pipes. It would have been nice to have that. Because when we can open windows, like, the weather we're having now, even that hot week, as long as we only have 3 or 4 hot days in a row, we can open windows at night, it cools off. This big brick foundation, plaster walls, which is, there's kind of plaster, there's that cement that holds the plaster to the lath. It's in there. I think all that cools down. If you get it cool, and it holds that coolness, and then it keeps you cool all day, and then, so you close things up mid-morning, and it stays cool in the house, and you open it up again at night, and if it's getting down in the 50s or 60s, you're going to be fine. So, the other thing that was really unsettling is when they were prepping it, which was like 4 weeks, 4 or 5 weeks of grinding and scraping and sitting in your side and hearing them constantly, 4 or 5 guys out here grinding and hammering, and it's like, it sounds like they're tearing your house apart. It really is unsettling. But I'll turn it over to you, I think, then.
The extensive preparation was, we had a painter who had done it before and really wanted to do it again. So he was on the books, and then he said, Carla, who's going to fix your woodwork that you need done? And there's a picture of that on, I think, on the back of the handout that you have at the bottom. They needed to replace rotted boards here, but also then found out that the entire beam holding this whole porch roof up was rotted. So a friend of our youngest daughter is a really good carpenter, and I called him and I said, is there any chance you could do this? And he said, yeah, in about 2 weeks. So he came, and he's an amazing carpenter, and he's here tonight. So if you need a really good carpenter, I can point you toward him. We love him. But Mitch Goosen is his name. Yeah. So, like Ward said, the boards, if you take a 2x4 off this house, it's a 2x4. And it's old growth. It has really tight grain. It doesn't warp. Probably a lot of you know this. If you go to Menards or Lowe's and buy a 2x4 now, it's quick, it grew fast, it's lightweight, it's probably going to warp, and it's 1.5 by 3.5. So you can't just, I have to replace this 2x4, I'll just go run and get a board. No, you have to get the right size of board, or you need someone who knows how to cut it down and do that kind of thing. So, yeah. you can see what a good job they did. This side and on the other side, there was a lot of rot below a window where the water had splashed a lot. There was a lot of rot. They took that off. Found in one spot that there was no sheathing on the outside, and that's the room that we call the cold room in the winter. So now we know why it's so cold. But did a really good job matching trim and putting it all back together, and I can't say enough good about his skills. So, any questions about repairs or painting, or go ahead, Bruce.
Your handout mentions those 1x6
Mhm.
laid flat
Yeah.
on each other. That's true for the exterior wall, and then the clapboard, the siding is outside that.
Yeah.
And was there any kind of layer for insulation, or you're just getting the inner face of all those 1x6?
Yeah, it really is built, one board on the other, 1x6s. Mr. Dowling was a lumber baron, and he had free lumber basically. So the whole house is built like this. There is no space between the outside and the inside. You're not going to blow in insulation or anything like that.
So how does that behave about, say, cold or humidity?
I think it's a heat sink in the summertime, when the sun beats on this side of the house. But it's thick. The walls are 3 bricks thick. So, it doesn't change temperature inside quickly, but it will over time. So it will cool off or heat up. So, yeah. Yeah.
Is your house like registered like for historic places where they tell you like when you make a repair, it has to be with the age of the house and all that? Because I volunteer at White River Light Station, so like even if they break a doorknob or something, they can't run out to Ace and buy a new doorknob. It has to be just like a doorknob from 1850.
Yeah, no, it is not registered. It is not registered at all historically. You can have just,
Probably have a little more freedom.
yeah, yes, we can do what we want. You can do that with a single house, or you can have a whole area, I think, registered with like the National Historic places. But we have not done any of that at all. That would really hinder what we do because we do a lot of it ourselves. YouTube is a wonderful thing. Yeah, YouTube is a wonderful thing. Yeah.
Is this house considered Victorian or pre-Victorian?
It's Italianate,
Italianate?
and someone said Victorian Italianate.
Yeah, that's
So, yeah. Roger?
You were talking, But I love sunny room. What's the room behind you?
This is the den.
Is that like a study or?
It's our TV room.
A lot of time there?
And it has this little bump out. It's good for having plants there. That's where we sit in the evening and fall asleep in our chairs. Watch TV. Yeah. Right here behind this wall is a staircase that goes from the front door all the way up. And on the other side of that is called a living room. You would call it a parlor. It's probably where when someone died, they would lay the body out and have the wake if they did that. And I imagine numerous people died in this house, which I never told our kids, because there was no hospital to go to be fixed or for you to die at. So I imagine this is where they were. Yeah.
How many rooms total in the house?
13. Yeah. There are 5 bedrooms upstairs and a bathroom, and downstairs is a bedroom and a bathroom. So.
One of the things that a lot of people don't realize, the inside timbers on these houses, I helped a house over on Park and Hunt, 1854 house, and she wanted to have it remodeled and take 2 of the small bedrooms and make into one big one. And we thought it was going to be easy till we got in there and we found out they were 3x4 rather than 3x5 rather than 2x4s in the wall. Okay? And they were out of oak. And if you've ever tried to cut anything like that, it's almost impossible with a regular saw to cut any of that stuff. I later made some of those timbers into sawhorses, and they're probably someplace in the garage right now. They'll probably be here 1,000 years from now.
Yeah.
That wood just doesn't rot. But
Right.
the wood sills, like behind you, down those wood sills would rot a lot, and I took and had to build a mold to make concrete replacements for it, and just I what would you call it? I took
Like wood filler?
oil. I oiled them, and then they fit in. But all the windows were starting to sag in her house, and if they hadn't been replaced back in about 15 years ago, she'd have had to replace the whole windows. So it's a lot of problems that come.
There are a lot of
repairing.
problems. This window up here, the upper sash, we knew that when they went up there to do the paint, that it was going to have to come out because there was a space above it about this big, and it had shifted down for whatever reason. So they took it out, replaced it with a board, and we had the glass had broken too, so we had the glass replaced, and then they reset it. So, but otherwise, who does that? Unless you're going to bring a lift in, who does that kind of thing that far off the ground? So, yeah.
How many windows and doors do you have, and are they all still original?
Windows, there's 41. And I think there are like 4 storm windows. If anybody wanted a job building storm windows, it would be a good career. So it would make a big difference to the home to make it warmer in the winter. So, but these windows are all original, maybe except for a few in the back and on the other side. So.
Any of the old glass have that ripply
Oh, yeah.
effect?
Yeah, the ripples. Yeah, it's fun.
Question, it seems to be kind of a miracle that the porch on the other side was screen porch, spent a lot of time on it, and then how did this porch on this side last so long?
But if you keep something painted, it will last forever. If you keep it sealed and protect it from the elements, it will last a long time. I think that on your handout, it says that Annie replaced, added to porches and did landscaping in 1901 or something like that. And I think that's when she added that screen porch over there. Because you can see where it was only this wide, and now it's a lot wider over on the other side. And it is a beautiful place. We slept out, when I was a kid, we slept out on that porch in the summertime. Even thunderstorms, it was great. It was so cool to be out there in a thunderstorm. So, yeah. And it was quiet. There wasn't traffic on Dowling Street like there is now. So.
So the foundation is brick, I see. Is this a standard Michigan basement, or is this a finished off basement?
There are a couple rooms that are finished. It's not considered living space in the basement. There's oilcloth flowered for almost every room. And when the Buttlemans had a boarding house here in the 30s, I imagined that they rented out the basement because of that. Why else would you put oilcloth on the walls? So yeah, this is a ceiling here, so it goes down into the ground 3-4 feet probably. Also, we don't ever have water in our basement. I think all the houses around here have sump pumps. We have never had water in our basement. Did they do like a perk test back in 1872 to decide, should you build a basement? I don't know how they did that. So they knew what they were doing when they built it this far out of the ground. Anyway.
Am I correct in saying it took 6 months of painting from May through October to get it painted?
Was it October?
No, it was mid-May till till the week after Labor Day. It was 4 months.
Okay, yeah. It was a lot of scraping and sanding and,
But yeah, 5 weeks of, they started May 19th and they got it primed before the 4th of July when they took a break.
yeah,
So
yeah.
How many people worked on it to do that?
usually it was a crew of 5 painters, and then Mitch had 2 or 3 or 4 people here doing carpentry work sometime at the same time. He kind of did it while they were on their break around the 4th of July. He did a lot of that work. But yeah, there were times there were 8 people here working on the house
Yeah.
at one time.
The trim and detail original,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and do you think it was paint, like you have it 6 colors, do you think it was divided out into those, because it was very specific, they used many different colors, sometimes a couple shades like you have in the contrast, but very beautiful balance.
I think about the paint colors, but this would be a typical Victorian painted lady. There's too much beauty up there, and you don't see it until it gets painted, and then you really see the beauty of what's up there. So that's why we did it this way. But anyway.
Is anybody this evening going to talk about the Dowlings and the historical people who built it?
Sure. Do you have a handout? Do you have a handout of the pictures and such?
Yes.
Okay. A lot of that is on there. George built it, I think, and then he met Annie. She was quite a bit younger than him, according to the articles in the paper that Tom Eitneyer wrote. And he died in 1896, I think, and she lived another 20 years plus after he died. And she did a lot of like landscaping and such. He had the Dowling shingle mill, the Dowling sawmill, the Dowling flour mill, Ferry Dowling this, Ferry Dowling that. Is where he made his millions, by cutting down pine trees all across the area. So he was a bigwig. He was also very big in the Masons statewide. And the article about his funeral said people came from all over the state, even though I think it was in March and there was a terrible snowstorm. And they came from all over, and it was a funeral procession. I think it was this church here that they were members of, all the way out to the cemetery. So, yeah, that's where all his money came from and why he built this house. So, but,
In all your restorations, did you find any interesting artifacts over the years?
yeah, I can talk about that. Not really artifacts, but has anybody heard of ghost marks on the walls? There's 2 little back bedrooms when you get to the top of the stairs. And when you get to the top of the stairs, there's a bathroom in front of you and a bedroom on each side. And there are glass blocks around the door to the bathroom. So the bedroom on the far side, everything was gray when we moved in. All the woodwork, it seemed like, was gray. And then that bedroom had gray wallpaper with pink roses on it, and it was very old. And so when we decided to paint that room, I decided to scrape the wallpaper off before the guy fixed the plaster. You always have to have the plaster fixed when you start a project. So I scraped all the wallpaper off, and I looked at these marks on the wall. And right here, there's one that it's about this high, and the mark goes like this, curved. It's, pretty square, like that. Over there, there's a mark on the wall that's square, about the same, but a little lower. And I looked at that, and I went in the bathroom, and I went, that sink that's hanging on the wall used to be in there, hanging on the wall. And that toilet tank, which hangs on that wall, used to be on that wall. That bedroom was at one time a bathroom, and you can tell that when you tear the wallpaper off and see the marks on the walls. that's the kind of fun thing you find, you know, when you tear things apart. In the dining room, early on, we ripped up the carpet in these 3 big rooms, and it's hardwood floors. So when we sanded the dining room, right in the middle of the floor, there's a little square hole about this big. Why would there be a little square hole in the middle of the dining room floor? That's what I wondered. Did they need electricity to the table? And then I read an article about an old house in Muskegon. Well, the house had a little button which Annie Dowling could press her foot on, and that would summon the servants. So that's why there's a little square hole in the middle of our dining room floor. Yeah, it's fun stuff like that you find.
Do you have any idea how many servants they had?
Servants, on the 1884 census that I found way back, there was Maggie Fitzgerald. She was 22, and she was from Wisconsin. Her parents were born, I think, Scotland and England. And also, there's a male, a 22-year-old male, which I can't read the name. He was from Wisconsin, and I don't know where his parents were from. But I imagine they had someone to take care of the horses and the carriages in the carriage house, which is now a home on the other side of the fence there. So, yeah.
So is there a fireplace in every room if that's what they needed for
I think they probably had fireplaces or stoves in all the upstairs bedrooms, but those aren't there anymore. There are 4 fireplaces, one in this room, one in the dining room, one on the other side in the living room, and then one below it in the basement den, which I can't remember who told me that Mr. Dowling had his masons meet here, and I imagine that's where they met, in that front room in the basement with a nice fireplace with a wood mantle and wood surround.
It's got real wood wainscoting all
Yeah.
the way around.
Original wainscoting, which is real cool. So yeah, yeah.
And upstairs, the hallway that goes down, and in the bedroom, you can see, like 7 feet up on the wall, the outline where there used to be probably a Franklin stove, and the stovepipe went through the wall, across the hallway into the chimney that goes up in the middle of the house. So they did have a source of heat up in that large bedroom.
Yeah. It's still heated by steam heat. We have a boiler. When I was a kid, it was this wide and this tall and about this long, and it was rounded, and it probably wrapped in asbestos, and it was painted red, and it was the front of it, you could see the cast iron. And when the fire was going, you could peek in there and you could see the fire. It's kind of like Home Alone when he goes in the basement and the fire is on in the furnace. So that went out in the early 70s, and my dad basically could do anything, and he broke it apart with a sledgehammer and hauled it out, I don't know where, and got a new boiler, which is just a square boring thing. And then that went out for us the first or second winter we were here, so we got to do that again. But it's still steam heat. And it's a good heat. It's silent. You don't hear a fan go on. You sometimes can hear the vents will squeal a little bit, but the pipes also go through wooden joists and such, so they make creaks and clunks, and you might think, if you didn't know better, it was probably a ghost. So, but yeah, you get used to the sounds of that kind of thing too. Our kids were certain that there were ghosts in this house. It's like, I've never heard or seen a ghost.
Are the major living rooms on the other side?
No, this is our main living room, our main room. On the other side is the kitchen. Yeah, and in the summer,
That's the bedroom I'm at.
in the winter, it's warmer here because the sun shines in some, because there's no leaves on the trees. Sometimes I get up from my chair and go in the kitchen, and it's probably 10 degrees cooler, and I turn around and leave because it's so cold in there. So it's an interesting place to live.
Talk about.
Just go through the lineage again all the way from the Dowlings. I didn't have a inclination.
If I can remember it. The lineage, George and Annie Dowling. After he died, she had to fight for anything she wanted because he had 4 younger brothers who were determined that she was not going to get anything. They were going to get his inheritance, and his parents were still alive when George died. So they all fought her. She got an attorney from Hesperia, I think, for some reason, and fought them in court for many years. And finally, after his dad died and his mother died, and she finally got half of his inheritance, 50%. And so then she, like I said, she lived here another 20-some years. And after that, the house went to her nephew, Charles Rao. And that was until 1933, the Buttlemans bought it. And they ran a boarding house here until the early 50s, probably. And when you do things yourself, you know, like when you repaint the kitchen cupboards, I took out drawers and painted the front and flipped them over, and it was made of an old signboard. And I put 3 or 4 of them together, and it said, Buttleman's Boarding House. Top of the hill, turn left. So, you know, unless you're doing that kind of thing, you don't find that out. They reused a sign for the bottoms of the drawers. I think Buttleman's probably remodeled that kitchen. They probably put the glass blocks in, because that would have been the era, and, you know, made that into a bathroom. Probably rented out the basement. So, some things like that. But
Maybe Roger or others who've been here a long time. Didn't Dowling live elsewhere here in town before this house? Didn't Dowling have a home near the O'Connell property?
Yeah, he has a park out there in Buttermilk Creek.
he owned some property over by Buttermilk Creek and wanted to turn it into a park and such. I don't think he ever lived there. Ran the boarding house. And the story has it, there's no fixture in the living room. There's a beautiful medallion on the ceiling. And there's a black gas pipe sticking out. There's no electricity to it. So the story was that Mrs. Buttleman took that fixture, chandelier, from the living room with her when she left. We don't know where it went. So, but after Buttleman's, then Murray and Eloise Birch bought it from them, and they came here when DuPont was new, opening, I think, and they were, he was high up at DuPont. So my parents had 6 kids, and bought this from Murray and Eloise Birch, and they rented from my parents for a year while they remodeled the carriage house into a beautiful home. So, and then my parents, and we moved in here. Mm-hmm.
And who were your parents?
Ted and Elaine Stemble. Yeah. But
Carriage house is on the street.
it's right on the other side of the trees are all grown up on the other side of the fence, yeah. So when we moved here, I think that house was there. The White House was almost finished, and that was it. We had this whole block to play in. And so there were 5 kids there. There were 6 kids on the other block. There were 7 kids over there. There were 4 kids there. And there were, 4 of us who were young enough to play. And there was a sand lot over there. We played baseball. While they were building the apartment building, we played on the huge piles of sand and had the run of the neighborhood. So.
Growing up here and as a kid, this was always about a mysterious place because they had the whole block. So nothing was around it. It just, that was it. And I think there was a spirea hedge across the front. Kind of thing.
Across the front? This was all spirea, the whole length of the driveway. And as we worked over toward Dowling Street on those gardens over there, there's mock orange bush. You know, they grow to 12 feet tall and they smell beautiful. But I think there was a whole row of mock orange all the way down there, and it might have gone all the way around the block because the Dowlings owned the whole block, of course.
Right,
So, yeah.
for a long, long time.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I have a question about the lot. How far did it go that way, and how big was their print?
They owned this whole block. Dowlings owned this whole city block. I don't know if Birch's owned it, the people that my mom and dad bought it from. I don't know when, was it a Rantham, I think, that developed that. I don't know when that was sold off.
Currently on 3 lots. We're sitting
Yeah.
on a lot, the house is on a lot.
Mhm.
And then the alley's been abandoned, so they own the alley, so they're deeper than
Yeah.
typical too. So.
Yeah.
I was gonna say about the floors. Should I take the mic or?
Yeah.
When we redid the floors, there's a round, it's in this corner right here, a round radiator, steam radiator, kind of unique. And when we did the dining room, we've had some of the radiators, we've taken them out and taken them up to a place in Shelby that does sandblasting and had them sandblasted and painted because they're they've been hand painted before and you don't notice it, but once you get them sandblasted and put a glossy finish on them, all this detail comes out and they're really beautiful pieces. The one we took out of the dining room, it's low and probably 5 feet long. And we took it out to the porch got it on a 4-wheel dolly, took it out the porch and rolled it onto ramps on a pickup. It actually dented some of the floorboards on the porch. It was that heavy as we rolled it out.
Cast iron.
Yeah, but after we got it out, we looked on the floor and you could see these marks, and it's like, oh, that's where the round radiator was at one point. It was between these 2 tall windows, kind of like you have in that room over there. And this round radiator sat in the dining room, but at some point someone moved it, and that long one probably sat in that bay window, all along that bay window, and heated that room, but they got switched. In the front room, when we did the one the other side of this hallway, we did that one, Santa, and there was this scratch that ran almost the whole length of the room, probably a third of the way out, and I just thought, what a crime. But I'm sure, when people were putting in wall-to-wall carpeting, the carpet layers were there, and they just cut their carpet and thought, we're covering up this floor, what do we care? And there was this long scratch, which, even when you refinish, there's just a long, dark mark in the floor that, how far would you have to sand to get rid of that? And I thought, what a crime, but, people don't think, it's a new age. It's wall-to-wall carpeting, that's what we do now. And I just thought, what a crime that was, but, most of these projects like that floor, I think Carla did 97% of the sanding and I did about 3% at one point. But that's kind of how it goes. And I am not a craftsman by any means. I've just learned, and as we've gone and, you learn things and you go, we're going to do that better the second time around. The main bath we've remodeled twice. One time we had a clawfoot tub, so you have to take everything out. We put flooring down, and it had this weird drain, and you can see it from the basement, and it was a solid piece of lead that was the trap and then went up into the floor and connected to the drain. And so we left that because I didn't want to get onto plumbing. And we put the floor in, and when I was trying to hook the tub back up, I could not get that to budge, and it was so hard to get, your clawfoot tubs, that's what, 4 inches off the ground, you're trying to get in there and do these fittings. And I just thought, why won't that budge? How can I can't get that pipe to move? And then I remembered that this molded piece had a flange on it, and we put the flooring over the flange, so it was locked. It couldn't budge. I got it to seal, but it was very challenging. The upstairs bathroom has the toilet she talked about that had the shadow on the wall. The bowl and the tank are separate. The tank hangs on the wall, and you've got a chrome pipe that comes down and goes into the bowl. So, again, took that off, and that we had a plumber come in to do most of that because there was some floor joists that had to be replaced because there'd been leaks over the years and such. But the toilet was my job. So I went and bought all new parts for the toilet. And when I went to hook them up in these big rubber gaskets, it's like, I could tell when I put it together, this isn't tight enough because the gauge of metal isn't what it was back then. So even though the diameter seemed right, the metal wasn't thick enough, the outside diameter wasn't right, and it was too loose in the leak. So we had to polish up the old parts and put them back in like it was. Yep, and it works. It hasn't leaked since. But those challenges are, so the second time around, but you hope you don't have to do it a second time around.
That's the other thing about that that bathroom plumbing. When he picked up the floor, the plumber came to put it together, and he said, for some reason, the pipes go over into that bedroom and come back. I said, I know why, because that was the bathroom over there. So. Our garage right here was the original ice house. They cut ice on the lake, big blocks of ice on the lake, and hauled them up here. The ice house had, it was sawdust, hollow walls with sawdust, and it sat right behind the house. And you had to pull in really close to the house and able to pull into make it a garage and pull in there. And finally, Dad and my brothers, he got some big pipes and some timbers and lifted it up. He poured a pad there, lifted it up, and rolled it over to where it is now. Took the grapevine and laid it down and rolled it over the grapevine over to there. How many people know how to do that? Well, he did so. And the grapevine is probably 80 plus years old. So, yeah, that needs some work too.
Was this such a large house? Were the Dowlings, was it a social center, or did they kind of keep to themselves? What do you know?
They had one son who died at the age of 6 of malarial fever. And I looked that up, like, what is malarial fever? This was a swamp. Most of Michigan was a swamp, and there were a lot of mosquitoes, and we had malaria. He died of malaria in Montague when he was 6. He's the only child they had. So I imagine that they entertained a lot because he was a bigwig in town. And then the articles in the paper said that after he passed away, she started entertaining, and she would invite veterans and things like that. And she was in the garden club, things like that. Either Roger or John Leddick told me one time that the original garden club members each had a Norway spruce in their yard. They planted a Norway spruce in their yard, and that's that Norway spruce right there. So if you drive around town, there's still some on Old Channel Trail. You can see who was the original members of the garden club, whatever it was called back then. So, yeah, there's funny things that you find out.
And we found out in the paper that Annie had the oak floors added in 1905.
Yeah, we refinished the oak floors. The whole house is pine. You would never know it because the trim around the doors and windows is like this wide, and it's beautiful. It looks like oak, but it's pine. And they had people who did graining, artisans basically, and they're just beautifully done, and they're still in really good shape. But and the floors were pine too, and we refinished them in 2005, and then we recently found out that she had added them in 1905, so it was 100 years later that we refinished the floors, and they were still in really good shape.
So before that, it was probably wider plank pine
Yeah.
flooring, not real fancy. But
Yeah. Yeah.
So it wasn't, yeah, it's not, in ways
Yeah.
it's not a showpiece, but in ways it was then.
Actually had gas lighting.
Yes.
That always confused me, because like, the other houses didn't have gas lighting. Where did the gas come from?
I don't know, but they would have a vat of some kind of acid, and they would drop a tablet in, and that would make gas for the evening. I read about that somewhere, so they did have that. You know, they make fixtures that are like one's up here for gas, and then there's another going down for an electrical, so they ran on both. But we don't have any of those in here. There is, on your handout, there's that picture in the attic of a gas fixture, and it had a black gas pipe that still goes to it, and it's still there. One of the first years we were here, I went up in the attic, and you can stand up, it's a big, huge attic, and started prying up floorboards, and they were all nailed down with square nails. I pried up floorboards to lay down rolled insulation. I wore my snow pants and everything. But I got to the middle of every room, the 3 big bedrooms here and there and the other side, and we'd measure to the middle, and there's a black pipe that runs along the joist, but then it's pulled over and nailed against the joist, and there's a hole right there in the middle. And it's like, why would there be a hole there? Well, because there was a gas fixture in the middle of every front bedroom here. We figured that out, so those black gas pipes are still there. So we took that opportunity to put in some bracing and put in a fixture with a ceiling fan, which makes a huge difference in the summer. So, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it'd be great
interesting.
if the black pipe were larger and you could use it as conduit and run electrical for it. But it's not that big. You could run 2 wires. But I don't think that'd be the code.
Joe,
In the Hume house, when you toured there, they tell you that the gas is still there as a backup for when the electric power fails.
Okay. Oh, yeah, yeah. It was real spotty, I think, when it first came out, the electrical. Yeah, yeah. Did you have a question?
When the house was built, how many bathrooms was included? And now, did you put any more bathrooms in?
Mm-mm. I don't know if the bathrooms are original or not. They're lined up above each other. Basement, main floor, upstairs. All the plumbing is in the back of the house. And I don't know, I've never figured out if they're original or not. The heat was added on because in like 3 or 4 rooms, there's a steam pipe this big over in the corner that goes up to the upstairs. So the heat was added at some point, and I don't know when that was either. So.
Another, yeah, about unique things. There were 2 fuse boxes, and we finally had electric new service put in with a breaker box. And the electrician said, "I've never seen a fuse box like that. Can I have that?" I said, "Nope, sorry." It was so unique, but it was 2 wires, obviously, but there were 2 fuses to every circuit. So each, your live feed and your return both were fused separately. Strange. So then, of course, if you blew a fuse, you had to figure which of those 2 actually blew. But it isn't hard to let them know, yep, that's the one that's blown.
No fuses.
Circuit breakers are so much easier.
And there's also a picture of the porch on your handout, which was the other side. After time, these brick piers sink, and so the porch floor is supposed to be at an angle so that water drains off, but not at such an angle that you can see space up there. So the other side of the house needed to be lifted up, and so we had a mason come and give us an estimate to lift up that floor some and make it more level. And he was going to bring in a big metal beam and lift it all up at once and build cement piers under there, and it was almost $30,000. And we said, oh, okay. And I had seen my dad do that back in the 70s. My dad again. And you can just borrow a lot of little bottle jacks, hydraulic bottle jacks. And so that's what that picture is about. We, Ward did this, lifted it up, just put a bottle jack under the beams all the way around. Yeah. And each day, just lift it up a half an inch or so all the way around and then go back out and do it again. And a lot of times when you're doing this kind of thing, good enough for who it's for comes into play a lot. So when you're doing it yourself, good enough for who it's for. So that's what we did. It didn't cost us anything except some time. And it's good enough for us until we're all gone. And someone else can spend the $30,000 to rebuild it.
It lasted 150 years. Is it really? Because, yeah, the fellow gave a quote, well, because it's just two bricks, those columns are just a brick square. Well, he said, that's not right. You got to do,
Yeah.
you know, a tier and offset the brick, so it's going to be 16 inches around. It's like, well, that's going to ruin the whole look of it. Well, but that's how it should be done. And I told her, I said, I can't crawl around under there and do this. I'm too old to do that. Well, guess I wasn't too old. And I rebuilt a couple of them. I poured a footing under one because it was, or capped the footing, and but that's what was under. You know, they're so far up, and then there were shims in there, and so you jack it up and put a shim in, and then you jack it up a little bit, and you'd pull it out and find a different size one and put in there, or maybe get another tier of brick. You know, you could fit another tier of bricks in. You hadn't that much space to do that. And I can't remember what. It might have been 2.5 to 3 inches in a couple places that we got it raised up, and it sunk that much, settled that much.
Yeah. So.
But it lasted 150 years with only a couple times doing that, so we figured it's going to last a while yet.
There's a lot of cracked plaster still.
So whoever wants to buy the house, then you can have, for probably $40,000 by then, they can come and do it right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Projects that you're working on right now.
We're finishing right now project. We still have a couple little things to do in the back, the main floor bathroom, and then the back hallway needs all the plaster fixed and paint. Yes.
And yeah, and the living room needs some plaster.
Yeah, the living room parlor has never been painted since my parents bought the house. And my mom said, when you paint that, I want to help you, because she was a painter in the family. And I never did get around to painting it. So it's another one that needs the plaster fixed before you paint it. So it's always fix the plaster first, whatever you do.
It's not terrible. Mostly it's peeling paint up.
Yeah.
And the ceiling we haven't gotten through that.
Would that be horsehair plaster, the original?
Yes. Yeah. It's in pretty good shape for how old the house is. Yeah. It has come away from the lath in some places, but not very much. Not like it could be. So it's pretty good shape.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for all the energy in doing this. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
It's sometimes fun to do and sometimes not. So, yeah.
We're lucky that we both feel the same way, and that you own this house, you have a responsibility. I mean, to the ancestors, to the town, to keep it looking like that. So
Yeah. We're just the caretakers
do.
for now. You know, we're just in a long line of caretakers. So. Anything else? How long do you want to stay?
So where is the pink?
The pink is on the front of the house. If you look from the front of the house, you'll see it's a coral color, coral pink. Yeah, and that's because we have 4 grandsons and 1 granddaughter. And I said, "Do we need pink on our house?" Yes. So that's for her, little bit.
And
So, yeah, the painter and I we were out front and held up a chip pink, and I said, I really like that. And I said, look, it just goes so well against the blue, so you'll have to go find it. And we tried putting it a couple other places, not too much, and painted it. See the top of the windows, there's a little piece
No,
of trim.
don't tell them.
Well, it's blue now because it didn't look good pink.
Any of the daughters or grandkids interested in it after you guys go?
Well,
No way.
yeah, like we talk about selling it. We're on like year 7 of the 5-year plan of getting out of here. You know, you have to go through all your stuff and get stuff ready to sell.
We had a couple nieces who said that,
But everybody says you can't sell Grandma and Grandpa's house. It's Grandma and Grandpa's house. Family Christmas is always here, you know, and so to be the one to sell it out of the family, we might take that jump someday, but because it's a lot to take care of.
I like that. I didn't grow up here, but I love the house and love this. You don't need all the space, but it's nice to have, and that screen porch is my favorite room in the summer.
It's
I can believe it.
it's
And I had to go
wonderful.
without it all last summer because they were painting.
Yeah,
Mind if we walk around the exterior?
don't mind. No, you just can't judge us on what's not done. We're working on it.
Amazing. It's amazing. All we see.
There's a lot that's not done. But
Thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you all for coming.